See, increasingly, as I said earlier, the government intervention that's happening in the economy is not happening to the benefit of the working people. It's happening against their interests. I'll give you some examples. The government spending that leads the deficit spending.
Yes.
Who does that hurt the most? Well, first of all, it ends up printing cash. So what happens then? Inflation. So who does inflation hurt? It hurts the wage earner. Say 50 years ago, over the last 50 years, the amount of food you get off of an acre of farmland is quadrupled. The amount of milk you get out of a cow has gone up by about the same amount, just through production.
Yes.
And yet, food prices have skyrocketed. So how is it that, we produce more food with less land, less fertilizer, less labor, less fuel, less water? All the costs of producing food have gone down, 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 down for 50 years, and yet the price of food has skyrocketed. Okay, well, there's a lot of things packed in there. First of all, what we've seen with trade unions themselves is that they're increasingly very entrepreneurial. They're a lot more entrepreneurial than some large corporations. They first of all, they only get paid if their workers get jobs. So they train these young people. If you train a young person as a trade union hall and you don't actually get them a job, well, then you don't collect dues.
Yes.
So that's not the case with universities, right? Universities can train you up. You don't get employed. They've already got your tuition.
Yes.
They have to compete they and their employer have to actually compete for jobs. So they have to be able to deliver high quality at good prices. Increasingly, they have their pension funds, which then invest in the economy. So they are not just they're not just workers, but they're business owners. And they also, if you sit down with them and ask, what's your priorities? It's not, let's go attend an anti-Israel protest or some other crazy radical cause. It's,
yes,
let's get that pipeline approved. Let's speed up home building permits. Let's get taxes down on diesel fuel. Let's protect, and for their members, let's protect the rights to own firearms for hunting and sport shooting. So, I mean, their basic agenda is the same as what we believe. So I think trade unions are going to play a very important role in the future of the Conservative Party. I was meeting with some of them today, and I want them to come out to our convention and put their stamp on our policy agenda. But more broadly, this is where, increasingly, as I said earlier, the government intervention that's happening in the economy is not happening to the benefit of the working people. It's happening against their interests. I'll give you some examples. The government spending that leads the deficit spending.
Yes.
Who does that hurt the most? Well, first of all, it ends up printing cash. So what happens then? Inflation. So who does inflation hurt? It hurts the wage earner, because the super rich, they can inflation-proof their assets and sometimes get inflation positive benefits, especially if they're able to leverage debt, which then goes down in real value with inflation as their assets go up in nominal value. Whereas the wage earner ends up way worse off because the money he earns is buying him less. This is an enormous wealth transfer from the working classes to the super rich. And I think the working class in the Western rural has been absolutely robbed over the last 50 years. If you think about it, say 50 years ago, over the last 50 years, the amount of food you get off of an acre of farmland is quadrupled. The amount of milk you get out of a cow has gone up by about the same amount, just through production.
Yes.
And yet, food prices have skyrocketed. So how is it that, we produce more food with less land, less fertilizer, less labor, less fuel, less water? All the costs of producing food have gone down, 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 down for 50 years, and yet the price of food has skyrocketed.
Yes.
Why is it that you pay 20 times more for an ebook today than you paid for a hard copy book 40 years ago? Even though that hard copy book had to be printed, you had to buy the ink, you had to bind it, you had to ship it, you had to rent a bookstore.
Yes.
Okay, so what does all this have to do with the working people? They have been, despite the enormous increase in production, that should have dramatically lowered prices because of enormous amounts of money printing, their purchasing power has gone down. And that is the reason why we have so much inequality. Now, that is not a market failure. That is a government failure.
Yes.
So that this did not happen because the government just stood back and did nothing and let the marketplace function. It happened because the government stepped in, flooded the economy with cheap cash, and ultimately carried out a huge wealth transfer from the working poor to a very small group of wealthy elite, and from the wage earner to the people who, through no fault of their own, live off assets. But that is one of the reasons why I think that's the number one reason why we're seeing working people look to more conservative parties who are tighter with money, because they know that they need to preserve the purchasing power of their wages, and we're the party to do it.
We've been talking about conservative orthodoxy. What do you make, Pierre, of Prime Minister Carney's seeming nodding to the right on issues like asylum claims and defense spending? How do you effectively oppose a government that, at least in some cases, is moving on longstanding CPC priorities?
Well, in the words of Lincoln, stand with a man when he stands right and stand against him when he stands wrong. That's the approach we have to take. The other thing I would point out is that he hasn't executed on any of this. Yes. He's made a lot of promises and pronouncements, and he doesn't have clear plans to actually implement any of it. So I think that the opposition that we will end up presenting is on the failure to deliver on all of the promises that he's made. He's going to have a hell of a time bringing his party along for that journey, if he really plans to go on that journey. And I think that as the time goes on, we'll see that a lot of it was more rhetoric than reality. Look at spending, for example. He's introduced a spending bill that has government spending of 8% in 1 year. And this is on top of the Trudeau spending. It's not like he inherited a miserly, starving government that had been slashed and burned for a decade. No, it's the biggest, fattest government we've had in a generation.
Yes. And
his first spending bill was to fatten it up even more. So I don't think we have to get carried away with the idea that Carney is going to take all of our ideas. He has tried to plagiarize the words, because we won the debate. We won the debate on the carbon tax, on inflation, on natural resources, on housing, and now everyone has to at least pretend they agree with us because the population does.